Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Damn, boy, he's thick! Boy, that's a thick-ass boy! Damn! Get down!
Do not come. Do not come.
I'm gonna come.
Let us remember these timeless words. Yes, we can.
I couldn't make this shit up. I couldn't make this shit up if I tried. I'm sad that I lack the talent to make this shit up.
Alright, Mechanists, the Giga Chad of this new era of healing thieves and warriors that have weaponized AFKing. If you're going to be playing a tanky support mechanist, you want mostly Minstrel's gear with a touch of Givers for that extra bit of toughness and boon duration. However, if you want to do DPS, Harrier's gear is always a good option, and the new Ritualist gear is also good. You just want anything with boon duration. Healing is not that important. As a tanky support mechanist, you're going to have around 20k HP, but it's going to feel around 50k. Speaking of 50k HP, the mech is the new mechanic for the mechanist. Aside from being a certified beefy boy, girl, or other third mechanical gender, this mech has an AI resembling your 5-year-old cousin getting into your dad's liquor cabinet for the first time. For DPS, this isn't a problem, as its positioning doesn't really matter too much for your damage. However, if you choose to take on this class as a support, you're going to experience all the joys of parenthood every time you enter combat, and by that I mean repeatedly screaming at it until it does what you want. Almost all your boons and shields come from your mech, which means we are going to be talking about key binding before I get into build specifics. That is right, I'm surprised it took me this long. You'll want to rebind both your mech's attack and return to me actions to easily accessible keys. Assuming you already played Engineer, this should not be an issue, but it might be a learning curve for people new to the profession that aren't used to as many buttons. While healing content, you'll want to call back your mech to your side as many times as it takes for it to get to you before you use your support moves. Otherwise, they will legitimately just miss most of your targets most of the time. However, with this added difficulty of positioning your mech come equally hilarious benefits, such as having over 100% boon uptime on your entire raid, because if you put out enough alacrity, it doesn't matter if it only hits 5 targets. Speaking of which, let's get into the build. Support Mechanist's most important trait is its ability to give alacrity every time it gives barrier. Between your mace and your mech skills, this means pretty much non-stop. However, this build also lets you give protection when you use your shield skills, which shields for 40% protection instead of 33%. The constant barriers and bonus protection mean it will be very difficult for just about anyone to die to anything that isn't an instant kill, especially if you have your own subgroup. With this build, you will also be tanking and should have just about 100 to 200 more toughness than your mech, no matter what your toughness is. Keep in mind your mech will almost always be at full health, which means recalling it to the field will take almost no time, and that can be used as an additional AoE crowd control skill every 4 to 6 seconds or so, if you need to spam it. Combined with your Mace 3, your Explodey Signet, if you take it, and your shield, you should be able to CC burst pretty much anything you need to. Don't worry about staying alive, as you see from the footage I've been playing over this, you can pretty much just ignore any mechanics that don't instantly kill you. Now let's go over the rest of your skills. Your signets are great and you're going to be bringing a lot of them. Mandatory are Barrier Signet because it's broken due to having a low cooldown and spewing out a lack in barrier. Shift Signet because it's broken due to doubling your boons received by copying them to your golem. being a stun break and an instant teleport. Rectifier Signet because it's broken due to your bonus heal effectively giving you hyper boosted regen. And Overclock Signet because it's broken because it gives you a pretty decent DPS skill and an instant respawn if your golem ever dies. Spoiler alert, your golem is almost invincible, so this is barely ever going to happen. The Power Boosting Force Signet can go without if you really want to. My recommendation are the Shrinking Elixir, the Quickness Elixir, or the Personal Battering Ram if you want to replace it. Your weapon skills aren't very complicated. 1 is your combo, a full 3 hits will give barrier and therefore alacrity to everyone around you. Your 2 is your slam dunk, will give regen and vigor to everyone around you, and it is worth noting that this is your primary actual heal. A Mechanist actually gives enhanced regeneration, just like a Herald. 3 is a ranged AoE stun that your mech will follow with its own ranged AoE stun. You bring shield because it lets you ignore a ton of mechanics by blocking and reflecting, and give out enhanced protection, and add a ton to your crowd control. Really no reason to take pistol over it. Now let's go over the mech skills. Your first mech skill will be a big punch that actually does a crazy amount of damage and inflicts weakness. Your second mech skill is the only one that you will not be spamming off cooldown, and it gives everyone around it a ton of boons, removes condition from them, and is actually an AoE stun break. Use this often, but read the room. If you might need it soon, save it for that. Your third mech skill is going to be your Barrier Burst, or as I like to call it, the Danger Dance. This is effectively a better version of your Barrier Signet, but you can use them at the same time. Your mech is going to flail around for a bit, giving everyone around it a crazy amount of might, fury, vigor, and alacrity. Use this on cooldown, but be sure your mech is in position first. Both this and Barrier Signet aren't wide enough AoEs to compensate for bad positioning of your mech. And that's just about it. What you're going to struggle with most is positioning your mech, and you can do that by calling your mech back to you if you need it to come to you. You can send it to attack if you want to have your mech attack a certain mob with everyone else and give them buffs. Or you can also use your first mech skill, which will make them dash to whatever target you currently have targeted, and that's a good way to position it as well. Please remember that if your mech is not on the group, they are not going to be getting buffed. Something I like to do sometimes is I like to stick a marker on my golem, and that allows people to know where it is at all times and to go near it if they ever need to be healed. I expect this to be nerfed soon. This is a ludicrously durable build, like hilariously so. Like I'm getting pre-nerf Scourge vibes here. So if you ever try it out, now's probably the time. I don't expect they'll nerf it bad enough that this is not a viable strategy, but I wanted to get this guide out before anything happened. Again, this is Jasper speaking, and I'm encouraging you to go to your local blood bank to donate blood if you can. There's a lot of crazy stuff happening these days, and hospitals can take all the help they can get. Thanks, and have a fantastic day.